Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. We're talking about coffee. This is another one that you guys requested, so I'm bringing it to you. And it's funny because coffee is super polarizing. You know, and it's whenever I talk to a potential client, they always let me know if they are a coffee addict and how they drink their coffee.
Really?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Everybody's like, I'm not giving up my coffee, and this is what I do. Like, coffee is a thing.
I guess I can
You
understand
love your
that.
coffee.
I love my coffee. Yep.
I go through phases.
Yeah. But for me, I think the difference or one standout for me is I have very little, there's no effect of the caffeine on me at all. So
That you notice.
Correct. And I'm pretty sure I know why, because there is caffeine in the migraine medicine that I take, the acute treatment medication. And most acute treatment medications for the migraines of the type that I suffer typically have a small amount of, so this
Caffeine.
Listen, if we're bringing it full circle, right, this goes back to sort of what you were saying where with the food, right? So you need more essentially to satiate, right? So
Yep.
I need I would need so much caffeine to
Feel the effect of caffeine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So let's go through a brief rundown of the research and the opinions and the things that we hear, right? So what you're talking about of that caffeine is a lot of people like the alertness, the wake up. And it does this by blocking adenosine, which is an inhibitory or calming neurotransmitter. So we need adenosine at night. So make sure that you're not drinking your coffee later in the day so that's not inhibiting the adenosine when we need it. Caffeine can increase adrenaline levels, which can have a substantial impact on our physical performance, right? So a lot of times people like it before a workout. It can increase the release of fatty acids from your fat tissue as well, which is interesting. It helps a lot of people eliminate, right? And that's because it activates peristalsis, or the contraction in the colon that leads to elimination.
Okay.
So there is some research where they're saying that caffeine or coffee helps to prevent colorectal cancer.
Really?
I would argue that it's probably the peristalsis and the fact that it helps eliminate and move things through the body that ends up having the down the line impact. I don't know the direct correlation, but in my head, that could be what's happening. It can also help us pee, right? So it's a diuretic. And so the way that works is that it actually irritates the bladder. So if you have any bladder challenges, especially later in life, stay away from the caffeine. And because of that diuretic factor, we'll talk about this in a second, but make sure you're getting enough water. It can also inhibit our absorption of water and salt. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough water. Caffeine as a stimulant. So no matter how, the source of the caffeine has been in studies show that it can support a decrease in body weight. And that's a function of the stimulant. It increases the metabolism, in particular, the metabolism of carbohydrates. And it's recommended in those studies that the daily dosage be 600 milligrams per day in divided doses. And that's actually a lot of caffeine.
So how much is in like a 8-ounce cup of coffee?
So it depends where the coffee's coming from. So I put these notes in here. So November of 2018, I had pulled some of this information for a seminar that I was leading. So at that time, and who knows where it is now, but at that time, so November 2018, Starbucks, like Pike Place, 16 ounces, had 310 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay.
Dunkin' Donuts medium coffee is 14 ounces. That has 210 milligrams of caffeine. A single can of Red Bull, so a little over 8 ounces, had 80 milligrams of caffeine.
Really?
I know, right? And the 5-hour energy shots, remember those crazy drinks from like the drugstore? Those, they actually didn't list their caffeine on their label. And so I went digging. Consumer Reports said that it had 215 milligrams in 2 ounces.
Okay.
So it depends where it's coming from.
Oh, wait, it's 2 ounces, but it was 5 ounces, right?
It's 5. The name of it is 5-hour energy, but it was a 2-ounce shot.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So going back, like 600 milligrams per day in divided doses is actually a lot of caffeine. So it doesn't all have to come from one source, right? So think about where you're getting it from. And I don't know, I'm not really the biggest fan of this. I think that there are ways that we can get the benefits of caffeine without having to drink the 600 milligrams per day. And that comes in the form of some supplementation and things like that.
Well, and like chocolate, dark chocolate, right? There is some caffeine.
A little bit, yeah.
That.
Exactly.
I mean, not nearly the amount in coffee, but
Starbucks, right. You'll hear people talk about the antioxidants in coffee. Full disclosure, I think it's relatively insufficient. It's like not economical, right? We're better off relying on our vegetables and fruit for antioxidants. But just like the chocolate adds a little bit of caffeine, the coffee adds a little bit of antioxidants to the day.
Right.
And I think for some people, it's really just like the ritual.
You see,
of it.
I think that's what it is for me. It's the ritual. I really like the taste of certain coffees and really dislike the taste of others. So I think it's very much a ritual and a habit and something I enjoy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other side of things, which is years ago, there was some science that coffee increases your blood pressure. This has since been proven otherwise. But stimulants can rev up the nervous system, which is part of why we get that alertness. But it also, when you rev up your nervous system that way, it makes your heart work harder. So I think that's where that blood pressure idea came from.
So my dad, at the break, under the guidance of his cardiologist, can only have 1 cup of caffeinated coffee. So he has it first thing in the morning, and then he doesn't have any more. He loves coffee. He's always loved coffee. But if he has any more throughout the day, he usually has decaf, which, most of us may or may not know, usually does still have a little bit of a trace of caffeine.
Exactly. And so that brings up to, if you have difficulty, like he talked about, first thing in the morning. So if you have difficulty sleeping or experience a lack of restorative sleep, the coffee, right? Like if we're sort of outweighing the benefits, like you might get this alertness at the expense of our sleep, or maybe you're getting a little bit of, added calorie burn at the expense of your sleep. I would argue that the sleep is more critical for your overall health, outweighing the potential benefits of that increased calorie burn. So we want to kind of look at this, think about your whole health picture.
Right.
And there are some combinations in certain supplements too that can give you the metabolic boost benefits with, dampened stimulant effect. And as you were talking about before, kind of how much caffeine affects us has a lot to do with our total body weight and a lot of other factors as well. So keep in mind, like, your threshold to get that impact may be different. And the more you have of it, the more of it you may need to get that impact.
Right.
It's also been shown that consuming large amounts of tea or coffee, decaf or not, hinders thiamine absorption and increases the risk of deficiency. So thiamine is a B vitamin that's needed as a catalyst for burning carbohydrates. And when we boost our metabolism, it increases our thiamine requirements. So more muscle requires more thiamine. If think about your activity levels. Athletes and even those with moderate activity levels require higher thiamine in their body. Thiamine needs also increase during periods of fever, like we said, muscular activity, like working out, pregnancy and lactation, as well as other forms of physical and emotional stress. So think about what's happening right now in the world.
I was just going to say, so the last 7 months, great.
Right. So just consider this when you're thinking about your coffee, right? Thiamine's really important. We're having that drain on our system.
Mm-hmm.
Pros and cons, but just think about it. And remember, thiamine is a B vitamin. When we look at B vitamins, we want to make sure we're getting all of the B vitamins, the whole complex, the whole family. And then for a time, there was some thinking that it was different if it was filtered coffee versus unfiltered coffee.
Oh.
But there was a 2001 study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that 4 cups or more of filtered coffee per day increased both cholesterol and homocysteine levels. Before, they thought it was only unfiltered coffee that had been shown to raise cholesterol consistently. So seems to, it doesn't matter, filtered or unfiltered. And then cholesterol, we all seem to know. But homocysteine is really interesting. So homocysteine is an amino acid that's in our blood. High levels are a risk factor for heart disease and are often associated with low levels of B vitamins, going back to the thiamine, right? Like it's all connected.
Right.
So we want low homocysteine, and it increases with coffee.
Okay.
There was also a study from the University of Nevada School of Medicine that showed that caffeine may reduce fertility by approximately maybe 27%. And then, like I said before, remember that, it's a diuretic. It can dehydrate us. So it actually diminishes the absorption of water in our body. So recommendations, what do we do? You do you, as I say often. But again, thinking about the whole health picture together. So if you're going to drink it, I would say 1 to 2 cups a day, earlier in the day, avoiding sweeteners, especially if you're carbohydrate sensitive. Use a low-fat milk if you need something in it. And if you are using a sweetener, add a little bit of that low-fat milk so that the fat and the protein from the milk help blunt the impact of the sweetener.
Right.
And then be sure to drink plenty of water. Have it early in the day, as we've said, so that we can get that adenosine when we need it late in the day. And then think about your particular health goals. There might be times in your life when you cut back, right? So if you're trying to get pregnant, maybe that's a time to cut back. And because it's addictive, I do recommend detoxing from caffeine a couple times a year. Go a week or so without that caffeine so that you can give your body a break and reset and, all
I've
those.
literally never done that. Just for the record.
challenge you. Yeah.
We could talk about that separately.
Right. That's an off the podcast kind of conversation. Lastly, for a healthier alternative, our members this week are getting a discount on the Trim Tea or Trim Cafe, which combines, it's either black tea or Colombian Arabica coffee and a powerful ingredient called Well Trim IG. And so you can use the link in the show notes. And of course, our members are getting the discount in their weekly email. And I think that does it. Lauren, anything else on the coffee front?
I don't think so. Food for thought for me, but the likelihood of me detoxing or stopping, drinking coffee is slim to none, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I know. Oh, last thing, the acidity. That kind of comes up. So a lot of times when people talk about acidity with coffee, they're actually using it as a way to describe like the flavor, like a flavor note rather than the coffee actually being acidic. Like when we look at the pH scale, coffee is about a 5. So per perspective, water should be about a 7. A tomato is a 4.
Oh.
And so it's like from 0 to 14, 0 being super acidic, 7 water being in the middle at like neutral. It's not really, take it for what it is. Anyway, there you have it, guys. The story on coffee.
Excellent.
Lauren, Thank you again for joining us today.
I love this. It's educational. I'm going to keep swimming Post-its and put Post-its on my food so that I, am interrupted and have more connection when I'm eating out of boredom.
Awesome. As always, guys, I'm your host. Connect with me on Instagram at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Our Facebook page is at the same handle. DM me with your questions, your ideas, your takeaways. That's also the easiest way to get in touch with me about working together. Of course, if you're not already a member, go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries to get this week's discount on the Trim Tea or Trim Cafe and the pumpkin energy ball recipe. So everybody, try something new this week, change it up, overcome the boredom, and we'll be back here next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.